All right, so let's talk about one of those teams that I said this to my dad the other day. I generally think Brentford might be in trouble if they keep selling. Obviously, Embuemo is gone. Well, we're not really going to touch on too much of things, but you kind of look at this team and kind of feel like this is a watershed moment for them because obviously the manager's gone. They're losing arguably their best player, and then potentially they'll lose. Well, they've already lost the midfielder that's going to Arsenal, Norgard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then potentially Vissa wants out because he wants European football. Forest, Spurs, and Newcastle all monitoring that. So, their first signing, as I actually think is an absolutely killer signing. I really like this kid.
Massive. Well, he's one of the reasons why I think if they stay up, it's because they've got, like, if they have the right, defensive line in front of him, he's going to steal them a game or two. Like, that's how confident I am in Kelleher, because I have no, like, I just felt bad for the young man, because I knew, like, he's a starting keeper, and you start to see that probably 2 years ago, and last year he proved when Allison was out that, like, he can play for a top club under pressure. When you're in a title race, and he didn't struggle at all. So I think that's going to be a massive signing for them, and the kind of player that I said will steal points for them next season. But is there enough around them when they've lost so many key components, right? Especially when you have the man leading you in charge is gone, right? So you're going to have to get a new voice in the locker room. You're going to have, Embuemo's gone. You're saying Wissa may be gone. But I'm not as worried. I think they will be in the bottom half, but I don't know if they'll necessarily be in the relegation battle.
So outside of outside of the players, I think their appointment of the manager is going to be my favorite to be the number one to get sacked first. So I just obviously, I think they know it too. You bring in a guy like Keller, I think he's a fantastic signing. 12.5 million is freaking fantastic, right? Up to 18 million. That's probably, if we survive relegation, he'll get some money from that. I think that's a fantastic sign. Jordan Henderson, I'm not a Jordan Henderson fan, but I think it's
just
the
experience
right move to have someone in. It's like having James Milner. It's like having Adam Lallana in your squad. You kind of need that with, leadership, and I think you do need that when you're losing someone like Thomas Frank, who had such a control over this club. When you're looking at some of the guys like Norgard leaving, I think Jordan Henderson move is a good move. I don't think it's a bad thing. It didn't cost you any money. He's a leader on and off the pitch. I think that's a fantastic one. Do you nail the Embuemo replacements? If Vissa goes, are we talking about that? So I think if we look at this, Antonio Milambo from Feyenoord, 18 to 20 million, depends on who you listen to. Again, dynamic midfielder, strong playmaking abilities, looks like Embuemo's replacement. And I think that's, again, they already knew that was coming. They knew Frank was probably going to leave. And I think what they did is they're trying to address those positions.
Yeah.
Again, they signed the fullback Coyote from a loan. It was after a loan. So I think that was an option to buy. I think that's not a no-brainer. But that's it so far. I think the question is, do they let anybody else leave? And do they bring in anybody else after this?
Oh, I think they're going to be. They're going to spend that Embuemo money, right? They've got money to spend.
They did pull United's pants down on that. I have to say it. Like, they were asking 5 million, and at the last minute, they're like, yeah, we'll squeeze 70 million out of it, and they got
71.
Yep, they got it. They pulled their pants down.
Because it's like you had no competition. Like, there was no one else fighting you for that player. Like, Man United had the upper hand, but yet still caved.
Well, it doesn't help that the player said he only wanted to go to United, so
that
doesn't help, right? Like, it's just, and good for Brentford. You got your money, right? I think, as obviously we talked about the Morgan Gibbs White deal this week. If your best player leaves and the club has got all the money that you feel you could get for him, and you've got maybe a bit over what you think you could get for him, then good. Then I think the fans generally don't feel cheated. Like, you're like, look, our best player's gone, but we got 70 million. We can reinvest that. You could probably get 3 or 4 players and make us better long term, as long as you get your recruitment right. And I think Brighton do that very well, right? They let them go, and then their replacements are often split over 3 or 4 players, and then they're making more money. I think Brighton, stats from Brighton selling lately to Chelsea is ridiculous. The amount of money they fleeced out of Chelsea. If that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. But I think for Brentford's standpoint, I do think that these guys have got to hit the ground running, because they're very big shoes to fill. And I can tell you, if they only had 1 or 2 more players, I think they're in trouble.
Only time will tell. I think a lot will boil down to if they sell Wisa. If they sell Wisa, I will definitely have to take a hard look at this squad, if depending on who they bring in. But I think if they can add
where the goals come from, right?
Well, that's the key. I think they're going to look to add, a forward, and probably some, whether it be defensive help. They will be bringing, I think, at least 2 more players. Like, that will be significant impact type players versus just depth. You know what? But the problem is that would have been even more than all the Mbeumo money, and probably a little bit more. So
yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they do. You have that right back, you have a new center midfield, you have a new goalkeeper. Jordan Henderson his experience will be a big asset in the locker room with the younger players. But if he's starting, that's when I have to wonder, like, do they have enough depth? Right. And that's not a knock on Jordan Henderson, but he's just not what he once was.
Yeah. And you got guys like Norgard. I find Norgard's going to be hard to replace. Right.
Yeah.
Because they're the guys that, sometimes we see them in teams. They're always not really valued as much as you realize until how valuable until they're gone. Right. Like, I always use in Toronto FC's term, Mark Delgado. I used to moan about him constantly. Like, why is this guy in the team? And then he left, and you're like, oh, I'm an idiot.
It's the dirty work that sometimes goes unnoticed and unappreciated.
100%. Norgard, I think, does that a lot.
So, subscribe, leave comments, and again, smash that like button.